Okay, we're on the edge of a totally new era of conflict, one that's being powered by artificial intelligence. And look, this isn't just about a new kind of weapon. It's a fundamental change in how wars are even fought. It's happening so fast it's making heads spin. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're giving you a crash course on the AI arms race.
I know what you're thinking. That sounds like something straight out of a movie, right? Like that terrifying short film Slaughterbots. But this isn't science fiction. This is a real concept, being discussed in official military journals right now. The future of war, it seems, is going to be small, cheap, and terrifyingly smart.
So that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Is this new reality just around the corner, or have we already stepped into it without even noticing? Let's dive in and really unpack this because it's complicated and incredibly urgent.
All right, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at what makes this a new kind of war. Then, we'll explore this idea of an intelligent battlefield. After that, we'll get into the rivalry between the US and China, tackle the classic debate of quantity versus quality, and finally, ask the most important question of all, who's actually in command?
Okay, first up, you have to get your head around the fact that the battlefield itself is expanding. It's not just a physical place on a map anymore. It's becoming this deeply complex, interconnected space that exists in places we can't even see.
The big idea that's driving modern military strategy right now, especially for the US, is something called multi-domain combat. The whole point is that it's not enough to be strong in just one area. You have to combine everything: your forces on land, at sea, in the air, in space, and in cyberspace to create this single, overwhelming force.
And yeah, you can see it's way more than just land, sea, and air now. Space and cyberspace are, of course, huge parts of any modern conflict. But look at that last one, the cognitive domain. That is the real game changer here. We're talking about the battle for information, for perception, for influencing how people think and make decisions.
So, the big question is, how do you actually connect all of those domains in real time? How do you make them all work together seamlessly? Well, the answer, at least according to some military thinkers, is a new doctrine called intelligentized warfare.
And in this new model, AI isn't just another tool in the toolbox. No way. It's basically the central nervous system for the entire military. The core idea is that the side with the best AI, the side that can truly think and adapt faster, will win, even if they don't have the most information or the biggest weapons.
The main goal here is just one thing: speed. In the military, there's this concept called the OODA loop. It's how commanders make decisions. You observe, you orient, you decide, and you act. What AI promises to do is crush that loop, shrinking it from minutes, maybe even hours, down to just a few seconds. And the side that can do that, they can act almost instantly, well, they'll have a massive advantage.
And believe me, this isn't just theory. We've already seen it play out. During a conflict back in 2021, the Israeli military used a special unit called Ghost. It apparently used machine learning and big data to find and hit hundreds of targets with incredible speed. In fact, some people started calling it the world's first AI war.
Which, of course, brings us to the great power competition of our time. We're talking about the huge tech rivalry between the United States and China. So, who's actually winning this AI arms race?
Well, if you go online and listen to the military analysts, there's one thing they all agree on: nobody really knows. This quote from a Reddit user just sums it up perfectly. Without a real war to test all this stuff, it's all just a big guessing game, even for the top brass.
But we can look at where each side seems to have an edge. For instance, most sources agree the US is still way ahead when it comes to really complex hardware, like the world's most advanced jet engines. But on the flip side, China absolutely dominates the market for small consumer drones. And as we've seen in places like Ukraine, those little things can be devastatingly effective.
And you see the same kind of dynamic at sea. The US has this massive advantage with its aircraft carriers, these giant symbols of global power. But then you have analysts arguing that China's newest destroyers are actually more powerful, ship for ship, than their American counterparts. It's that classic debate, quantity versus quality, but with a serious high-tech twist. This all leads us right into one of the oldest debates in military history, but it's being totally redefined by technology. What wins wars? Is it having the absolute best gear, or is it just having overwhelming numbers? And how is AI changing the answer to that question?
There's that famous quote, "Quantity has a quality all of its own." And boy, is that more relevant than ever. I mean, think about it. If your missile costs 10 times more to shoot down a drone than it costs your enemy to build it, is your fancy technology really an advantage at all?
Now, check this out, because it's a perfect example. You've probably seen headlines saying the Chinese Navy is now larger than the US Navy. And if all you do is count the number of ships, well, that's true. But if you measure by total tonnage, the combined weight of all the ships, the US Navy is still nearly twice as big.
So, the crucial point here is that how you choose to measure power can completely change who you think is on top. Is one giant aircraft carrier better than a dozen smaller, more advanced destroyers? Honestly, there's no simple answer. It all depends on what kind of fight you're planning for.
This whole philosophical divide goes all the way down to R&D. Our sources suggest that China puts a ton of its focus on development, taking ideas that already exist and turning them into real products really fast. The West, on the other hand, tends to invest more in basic research, that fundamental science that could lead to the next world-changing breakthrough. These are just two totally different bets on where the future of innovation is going.
But after all this talk about technology and strategy and numbers, it all comes down to one final, deeply human question. As these systems get smarter and more autonomous, who's actually in control?
Military theorists have a name for where this is all heading: extreme warfare. It's a vision of war fought by swarms of intelligent machines at speeds and scales that are just beyond human comprehension. And some of our sources say the destructive power of these swarms could rival nuclear weapons, not through a big explosion, but through sheer, overwhelming numbers.
And again, this isn't some distant future scenario. We've already seen reports from the conflict in Gaza about an AI system, allegedly named Lavender, that was supposedly used to generate tens of thousands of potential bombing targets. It raises these profound, deeply troubling ethical questions about outsourcing life and death decisions to a machine.
And this really brings us to the ultimate question in this whole new era. As we hand over more and more battlefield decisions to algorithms, who is truly in command? When an autonomous weapon makes a mistake, and it will, who's held responsible? The programmer who wrote the code, the commander who deployed it, or does the very idea of accountability just start to break down? That is the question that lawmakers, ethicists, and really all of us are going to have to confront.